Stay right here as we begin our third season with a discussion on ethics, unions, and colorful celebrations in sports. Next on Views and Vibes. The sports world seems to be in a wild state of flux these days. From athletes and teams being caught cheating, to entire leagues delaying the start of the season, to the debate surrounding how athletes express their emotions, there seems to be as many winners and losers off the field as there is on the field. Here to discuss ethics, the role of unions, and spontaneous versus branded celebrations in sports, our host of the Butch McAdams Show on WOL Radio, Coach Butch McAdams, host of the Round Ball Report right here on CTV, Mr. Andrew Dyer, and co-host of Moon Man and the Fun Bunch on WOL as well, Ms. Kima Qualls. Welcome to Views and Vibes, everybody.
Pleasure.
Glad you guys could be here. Glad to see you guys again like we see so often. I brought you guys in here today because you guys are my sports people. And I wanted to start the show off talking about ethics in sports. And it seems like the two don't really match up. You have Lance Armstrong now being supposedly caught for cheating on all 7 wins of his Tour de France. You have the bounty system going on in New Orleans for the NFL. You have, to me, flopping. I don't like flopping. I have a major problem with flopping in NBA. To me, that seems unethical. What is going on with sports and the way that people are conducting themselves? Let's start off with Andrew.
Well, I mean, it's the competitive drive to win. People wanting to do anything at all costs to win because there's so much money involved in it. I mean, and we see the same thing on the political landscape. People will say anything to get political office. No names, you know.
You wanted to bring up the debate thing. That's what it was.
I'm just
I want
saying.
something in here somewhere.
But I mean, but that does not. It's not an excuse for people compromising their character. But that's the temptation that's there. If you know that you're competing, if there's the thought is you're competing against folks that are doing things that giving them a competitive advantage and not getting caught, and you want to try to keep your athletic talents competitive, people do the same thing. Doesn't make it right, but that's the choices that some folks make.
And you know, you brought up a good point right there, the whole getting caught piece. Coach, is ethics and getting caught like the same? I mean, if you are doing things that are unethical and you don't get caught, is it really unethical?
Well, you know, there's an old saying in sports, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Right, okay.
And a lot of folks live by that. Everyone looks for an edge. Everyone looks for an edge, and I can't blame them. Now, certain things that will endanger your health beyond sport, like steroids and performance-enhancing drugs, they're certainly off limit. But if you do it and you don't get caught, is it cheating?
Right. Yeah, exactly.
At the professional level, it's different if you're in high school and maybe even college. But but I think there's a little cheating there's a lot of cheating going on in college level. Everybody wants to win. Again, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
So, Kima, who's to blame for it? Who's to blame for this big split between ethics and doing the right thing in sports, whether it's college, high school, or professional level?
It's just the nature of the system. When you have that much money involved, when it comes to winning, you're going to do whatever you need to win at all costs, period. When you talk about TV contracts and advertising revenues and ticket sales and sports luxury box, people don't want to pay to see somebody lose. So if you can do whatever advantage you need to do to win, that's what you're going to do. So when it comes to ethics in sports, it's almost like there is no, I mean, the two are, I think Andrew said, mutually exclusive.
Right.
You know, you can't really, you know, hold everybody to this standard when all of a sudden the standard is to win. So it's almost like a conflict of interest.
Now, do you think that, did you have something else?
No, go ahead.
Oh, okay. Do you think that the athletes are unfairly reprimanded for what happens when obviously it's the entire system that's flawed?
It's like that, the Rihanna song, is they not sorry that they were wrong, they were sorry that they got caught.
Right.
I mean, that's the whole scenario. I mean, it's the risk-reward scenario. And like Kima was saying, you really have to take that from the traditional, like, individual ethics because, as Al Davis said, it's just win, baby. That's what the sports are about.
Right.
I mean, and one of Coach's eyes, one of the biggest icons in the Washington area, John Thompson, he got praised for having a basketball with no air. He said, but I could graduate all of my kids, but if I don't win 20 games and make the NCAA tournament, I will get fired.
That's right.
And then that's and that right there, you know, when, from a coach's perspective, especially at the college level, it's either you win or you recruit athletes or you graduate students. Which path are you going to take?
I remember vividly when Florida State was competing for a national championship, and their
Football or basketball?
football,
Okay.
Seminoles,
Right.
and Sebastian Janikowski, I think he had missed curfew. He did something. And the reporter asked my man Bobby B, are you going to discipline him, coach? Are you going to allow him to kick in the championship game? Bobby Bowden looked at the reporter like he was crazy. He said, yeah, I'm going to play that boy. He said, are you kidding me? I'm trying to win a national championship. I said, go ahead, Bobby.
But then you look at teams like last season with BYU, when they got to, in the NCAA tournament, they got to the end, right up to the tournament, their star player violated BYU rule, and they benched them. And so now you're looking at certain schools that sort of have, that enforce this ethics, but then you have other schools like a Florida State that may not. So
Well, and but BYU is Brigham Young University,
Right,
so
no.
they had the moral standard. So that's where they allowed, the university was more about their moral standard
Right.
than the bottom line.
Right.
Florida
The whole
State's and
honor
the major
system.
schools are about the
Winning.
bottom
You
line.
wanna win.
But the hypocrisy of it
And
all.
that's what I
Yes.
wanted to ask you.
The hypocrisy is you have presidents of these universities now they are purporting to be interested in the student athlete, but in reality, with so much money involved, they want to win.
Penn State.
I was going to say, look at Penn State
Yeah.
scenario.
Yeah,
Right.
at the
They
end of the
more.
day, at the end of the
So
day,
many
They want to win.
right, they want to win. They have to win.
Yes.
Because then you look at, you know, BC, especially football with BCS, the Bowl Championship Series, and all those teams trying to get that kind of money. What is it, you know?
Al McGuire used to say there's a cash register behind every story in America. Why do you think
Even politics, right?
Right. Why do you think a Savannah State will take a 50-point butt whipping for the Benjamins?
Yep.
They don't care.
Because people don't contribute to their school,
Right.
so they have to make money
They
up some
call
way. And you
those
look at
money games.
right, Towson, Louisiana, Monroe, all those teams this season that have taken, you know, gone up against
And
LSU and Arkansas, for the payday.
And then they're asked the top school, why did you beat them so badly? And then every time
came
I
to
hear that
play.
question, you know, I think of my man Clint Eastwood in The Unforgiven. You know, when the guy said, you just shot an unarmed man, and Eastwood's response was, he should have armed himself. so those schools should have armed themselves.
Right.
So how do you get the cheating out of the system? Is there any way to do it as long as the money's involved?
long
As long as money is
It's too
Right.
big. Just
Right.
follow the money.
So why
But the
even
cheating, excuse me, but the cheating is at such high and various levels. It's not just the athlete cheating.
Right.
I mean, you
It's
got the referees, like we talked about the
school.
referees.
Yeah,
the schools.
and look, you know what?
So
let's not be naive. A lot of the schools, not calling names, but a lot of the schools that are getting these big name players, first of all, how do some of these guys qualify to get in?
Yes.
All right? And then secondly, what are some of these schools doing to get them to come to their university?
Right.
Now, I'm not indicting anybody, but I'm just saying it makes you think.
Well, I will indict on that aspect the NCAA because, you know, they claim they want to know, but they don't really want to know.
No, they don't want to know.
Because if they wanted to know, they would actually put policies in place to do something about it. But you can't. You know, as long as the emphasis is on the Final Four and the NCAA and getting, you know, making all the money for those.
Here's a challenge to the NCAA. If you are so concerned about the student athlete, go back to the old school ways, Andrew, of all freshmen being ineligible for varsity.
So they can adjust to the academic.
So they can adjust to it. You think that'll happen? No.
I'm going to say this, Maryland wouldn't have the 4 wins they had because they wouldn't have that freshman playing.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the final word on ethics. We can't get it out of the system. When we come back, we're going to talk more about the unions and their role in sports. Come right back after this break. Welcome back to Views and Vibes, guys. We have the sports crew up here with us today. Right now, we're going to get into a discussion about unions. And I want to talk about the role of unions in sports, because what you've seen over the past couple of years are people, whole leagues being locked out, whether it's the NBA, the NFL. Right now, the NHL, even though they may be getting close to an agreement, they're locked out. The referees earlier this year. What do you believe the role to be in professional sports of the unions? And are they really doing their job, or are they being more detrimental to the reputations of the leagues?
I think the unions are pivotal because coaches, they can tell you, you go back, were it not for the unions, we wouldn't have free agency. The players wouldn't have guaranteed contracts. They wouldn't have the
But doesn't that in itself sometimes hurt the league?
I'm talking about, but the unions are out for the players because they would just be treated like cattle. They still try to, within the framework of a union perspective. The owners are the ones that try to use the image aspects to try to break up the unions, and they try to claim that they're broke, while the modern day motto is they're not even paying for these stadiums.
Right.
So how are the owners losing money?
Right.
When I think of unions, I think of 2 people. Kurt Flood and Jimmy Hoffa. You know, so but you have to have unions. You have to look out for the players. I don't begrudge a player for getting a contract. You know, there's an old saying that a monkey will take money and he don't have pockets to put it in.
But Kima, do you think that the unions themselves could structure things in a different way, that we're not running into the same problems we are right now, or is that more on the owners of the different organizations?
As far as structuring you're not going to change the structure of the unions have to stay the way they are. I think the difference is, as technology advances, as the style of play for each sport advances, then the unions need to adapt. And I think that's sort of the issue when they sign these long-term deals for 10 years, but they don't allow any flexibility in the change of the way the game is played. But as far overall unions, they're like a necessary evil, because, you know, the advances that they've helped players make, especially in the areas of salaries, have, you know, they've gone exponential since the unions have been put in place.
So why do you guys think there's such a negative reaction to unions right now? Even looking at not just unions in sports, but unions overall, like what's going on in Wisconsin. Where's this negative response coming?
It's different. Unions are, the professional sports unions are a lot different than the function and the purpose and the goal is a little different than in a regular labor market, because in a regular labor market you can, you know, if the owner doesn't think that they're getting enough, that they're paying too much for labor, they can shift their labor someplace else. You see, when the NFL or, you know, with the replacement refs, you can shift your labor somewhere else, but you're not going to get the same product.
Right. And actually, the unions are not only a necessary evil, they are required evil, because that's how they get the antitrust exemption. That's how they can restrict player movement. That's how they can say you can't come out of college to participate in our league, because they're dealing with it as a collective body. I mean, the reality of it is, it's a message that they're sending out, that the owners are sending out to try to put the pressure, similar to, as Kima said, that you're seeing in society, where the corporations are trying to demonize unions because it's costing money out of their pockets. Same thing with the owners. If the unions were not there, do you think that the owners were willingly to not only pay benefits to the current players, but as we've seen with the guys with the NFL, try to pay money to the guys that actually laid the foundation, that are now having all these post-concussion, they're committing suicide, all types of things for sacrificing their bodies. And you talk about the hypocrisy of it. I mean, they want to talk about their concern about concussions in the NFL, but they don't even require the players to wear minimum. They're not required to wear mouthpieces. They're not required to wear pads in their pants. If you look, you see the skilled players do not have any pads in their pants.
Right.
But they're going to say, and they're not they have concussion helmets, but they're not required to wear them.
Really?
But they say that they're concerned about the safety. They're changing some of the rules about the hits you can make, but how about making them wear the mandatory protection so that regardless of what hit, you've already prepared yourself to be protected.
Right.
You know, and again, as I stated earlier, I don't begrudge an athlete getting as much as he or she can. However, I do have a problem. Once you sign that contract, you have to abide by that contract. Now, if ownership wants to tear it up and reward you with another one, great. But if they don't do it, you sign the contract, you abide by it. Alex Rodriguez signed that contract. They gave him 10 years. I'm sure the Yankees want to rip it up now.
Right.
But they can't.
But they can't.
Right.
But no, and I agree with you on that, Coach, especially with when you see these players, you know, well, he's outplayed his contract. Well, what does that mean? You had an agent, you negotiated your deal, you played. You either need to find a better agent to negotiate a better deal up front or put more incentives in. But I think from the owner's perspective, you have to say, well, this is the deal that we all agreed on. So why is it now I have to tear this up? Or you're going to hold out your labor. You know, you're going to hold out of training camp and not show up because you don't agree with the deal.
Do you think there should be union protection for college athletes as well?
Well, I mean, you can go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, I think so. Because, again, if you're talking about a big-time conference, SEC in football or basketball, Big East, ACC in basketball, that's not amateur sports.
Right.
Anytime the tournament, the NCAA tournament, signs a multi-billion-dollar contract, that's not for glory and school and apple pie. So, yeah, I'm in favor of athletes, collegiate athletes, being compensated in some way.
And I agree with you on that one.
I was going to say, I mean, without the compensation for the athletes right now, if you did have unions on the collegiate level, who would pay for that?
Well, go ahead. No,
what would the unions? I was saying, I think they go hand in hand because without the payment, what is the union representing?
Right. Right. And
So I mean, they go up with the payment.
well, I mean, but I guess representing, you know, if athletes get hurt, you know, if I mean, any number of things. I can't.
Well,
Well,
there's
you can
already
take
insurance and everything
right.
Yeah, you can
that
take
goes
out
along with
insurance
that.
policy.
Right.
But I think, again, we talk about hypocrisy. You've got Texas, for example. Their coach, Mac Brown, makes $5 million a year. And it's justified because the football program alone, I think, brings in something like $60 to $80 million
Per year?
per year.
And that's just at
They
Texas.
fund the entire athletic
Right.
programs,
Right.
and they use. That's why they look all the other way.
Right.
You look at a situation. They talk about hypocrisy. In the first segment, you were talking
The
about ethics. We saw what happened with Bobby Petrino. He took Arkansas to the BCS, and they caught him with a young
around.
lady. But now I think they're regretting the fact that they fired him because they were on the BCS, and now they're going to be on the outside looking in at the bottom of getting in the SEC.
Way on the outside looking in.
But when
Way on the outside.
But when you have a team and a coach generating millions of dollars and the players doing the labor not getting a single dime, there's something wrong with that.
And maybe they need unions specifically for that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, if people,
Go ahead.
so people argue that, you know, collegiate athletes, part of their payment is the education that they get. But I would also argue you're generating a lot of money, even on the jerseys that you sell with
Right.
my name on it.
Right.
But I don't get any. I don't get any of that revenue.
See, that's outdated. That, you know what, and I agree with you. That train of thought, that philosophy was great in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. But
we're
the
way past
money
that.
now with network and cable television, the monies are so great where that scholarship is just a drop in the bucket.
Right. Guys, we have to take a quick break. When we come back with more sports talk, we are going to get into celebrations, how they are either branded or how people are just spontaneous with it. More after this. Welcome back to Views and Vibes, guys. We are doing our sports talk today. And right now I want to get into a discussion about celebrations in sports, because the big backlash against athletes a lot of times when they're celebrating. Sometimes it's spontaneous celebration, you really can't control it. Then you have like my man up in with the Giants, you know, who does salsa every time, his little branded little thing, or even Tebow with his kneeling thing. You know, what do you think about celebration in sports, and why do you think there's such a strong backlash against them when they do celebrate, when athletes do celebrate?
They start out as spontaneous, and then when they get, like the salsa was something that he did, and then once it became his brand.
But he was looking to do something. He was looking to do something. That was the first thing that came to mind when he scored his first touchdown. I actually read an article about that. And so he's like, okay, somebody, I think his grandmother said you need to do something. And so, funny enough, his grandmother told him. And so he figured, okay, I got to do something. So when he scored his first touchdown, he did the salsa. Now they're like, well, you have to keep that up now. You know, so. You know, that wasn't really spontaneous because he had planned to do something. But
was it Elmo right back in the 70s?
But see, there's been, that was what I was going to get ready to say. There's been celebrations for a long period of time. The first guy that I can remember doing somewhat of a celebration was a guy named Homer Jones, who was a wide receiver for the Giants. And
how far back are we going here?
Oh, this was the 60s.
Okay.
And Homer was the first one that I remember. After he caught a touchdown, he would spike the ball.
Okay.
And then you had Charlie Taylor, who played here. Charlie, every time he caught a touchdown, he would give the touchdown signal. I don't have a problem with it, but it depends on the situation.
Really?
If you catch a 10-yard pass for a first down, that's not a celebration.
That's doing your job.
If you get into the end zone and you score and your team is still down 2-3 touchdowns, there's no need to celebrate.
But sometimes that's spontaneous. You can't help it. You're so built up on emotion that you actually got a point. Especially in football, because it's not like, you know,
you gotta be able to control that.
Score every 5 seconds.
You got to be able to understand when and why you celebrate.
But if it's spontaneous, though, you can't control that.
I don't believe it's spontaneous.
You don't think that when you're so built up with energy,
that's selfishness.
So excited?
That's what that is.
Okay.
But
that's selfishness.
The problem that I have, I mean, you know, it's, even though people there's no problem with the celebrating, but you know, when it gets a penalty and it hurts the team, that's when it gets into being selfish. Now the issue is that a lot of kids emulate that. So when they see some of the silliness that they do on TV, you see that same stuff the whole week, the next week, at all the football games or all the basketball games, you see that same silliness, and the kids emulate it. And so that's where you look to the professional athletes and say, look, please.
Let me ask you this, though.
You know what? The professional athletes, when I coached basketball, I could give a darn what the professional athletes did. That foolishness, I wasn't having.
Right.
I was not having.
But this is a 24/7 cable television, video games.
Doesn't matter.
But that's what the kids do, Coach.
Right.
I mean, they're in
but
it against.
But you still have to have.
I'm not saying the coaches allow it, because it's actually not even legal to do any of that stuff at the youth and high school level. But they still try to do it.
But is it racially biased, though? Because you're talking about self-expression. You're talking about people just becoming emotional.
No, it has nothing.
No, because I'm black and I can't stand it, as I said before. Now, I don't mind Victor Cruz dancing because, A, he's got a Super Bowl ring, and B, he does it after a touchdown, and the Giants win games.
Right.
But as I said, a first down, a 10-yard pass.
Coach, I'm going to tell you, like, if I go out to the driving range and I hit a ball like 200 yards, I'm celebrating. And I'm just at the driving range. It's a natural thing. It just comes out naturally.
But
like, yeah, I did it.
Was the first one to really show that type of emotion in golf.
But he won.
But he was winning.
I understand. But there have been guys that have won, but I'm talking about it enhances the appeal of the sport.
But you have
That's why they allow it there.
But Andrew, you have guys now that are celebrating and they are not winning.
It goes back to what we talked about, Coach, the money. The purist is always going to be there to watch the game.
Right.
That entertainment piece is to get them
and
extra dollars of the
themselves.
non-traditional sports.
Well, especially in football, where you can't see their faces, where they're wearing helmets all the time. They have to do something that kind of sets themselves apart from everybody else.
But not from the team, though. Not from the team.
But the team. But they're trying to make their extra money. They're trying to get
but
those.
a lot of times
that gets your attention. That's
right.
What gets
but
you
a lot of times with some of those celebrations, cost the team
winning
penalties.
is the greatest. Winning is the greatest. Deodorant, winning is the greatest form of advertising. Look, Cruz has a Campbell Soup commercial now, right? Not because he's the best wide receiver, because he plays for the New York Football Giants, who are the champions.
But look at Ocho Cinco. You know, look at Chad Johnson. You know,
he and T.O.
They weren't winning anything, but still, they got TV shows. Why? Because of the personality he was able to show.
Right now, he doesn't have
but while he was in the league, but while he was in the league,
he'd be happy to come in there now.
But while he was in the league, though.
But the reason why he is not in the league, he is like the pretty girl who, when she was young, she was beautiful, had a nasty attitude, but everybody would put up with her.
But everybody was still after her.
Okay,
She
right.
still got all the
But as soon as she got older and those looks faded, you know what?
Come on, Coach.
Folks would say,
keeping it real.
folks would say, hey, that juice ain't worth the squeeze.
But the fact
And I'm going to celebrate. I made a good
But the fact is, you know, when you do that, you do actually get more attention. And had he saved his money right, the money that he was able to get from that celebrating, he would be fine right now.
You get the attention. It comes at a cost.
It does.
And sometimes it comes at the cost of the team potentially even winning the game.
I go back to most of the great ones. There are a few great ones.
This got to be a final word. We have to wrap it up.
Okay.
So.
Most of the great ones, as the old expression, act like you've been there.
Yep.
Right. All right. There you go. Final words from Coach Butch McAdams. I want to thank Coach Butch McAdams, Andrew Dyer, and Kima Qualls for joining us today. You can find out more about our guests by viewing our website, viewsandvibes.com. Until next time, I'm Tariiq Omari Walton, and this has been Views and Vibes.